Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
No one will be watching us.
So many people are searching for where the unraveling of the United States of America began. Began long before the Beatles, but they were the devil in human form. Many people saw them for what they are. They said, why not do it in the road? Well, they're doing it in the road now. You can marry a dog, a horse. You can become disabled by choice. You can cut an arm off and say it feels better to not have an arm. So to me, the symbol of America is this former athlete, Bruce Jenner, who cut his male part off to feign at being a woman. The man is so psychotic, in my estimation. He is so jealous of his sick, ugly daughters and the attention they've garnered without any talent whatsoever, that this man had to up them by cutting off his male parts to become a woman to compete with his own daughters. So this is a mentally ill man, in my estimation, yet he's a symbol of, I don't know what, he's put up on every newspaper, magazine as something wholesome for America, and it symbolizes the death of America. As Islam is rising, America is dying. As Christianity is being crushed around the world, what is rising? Islam. Why is it rising? It's not because the people who are joining Islam necessarily want to cut other people's heads off. It's because they're vomiting from the putrid garbage being spewed down their throats by the vermin of Hollywood. Did I say it clearly enough for you? Write it down and send it immediately to Media Matters. Send it right to George Soros' sick inner ear. They have destroyed this country. They're destroying the entire world. Now, I want to back off. Many people are talking about this because they can't believe it. Becoming disabled by choice. Transabled people feel like imposters in their fully working bodies. So they're cutting off their own body parts. And they're saying that they feel better without that body part. They want to become disabled. And they've made a new name for it, transability. The desire or the need for a person identified as able-bodied by other people to transform his or her body to obtain a physical impairment. Now, in my day, that's a mental illness. They're put in a mental hospital. They're given medication. They're put in a straitjacket, and they're put in a locked ward. And they're guarded around the clock from hurting themselves or others. In this demented, sick Western world of ours, this is now considered a lifestyle choice. What about the concept of white privilege, which, of course, is an invention, a construct of the Marxist left? Here's another story. Teachers complain as chaos reigns in St. Paul's schools, spending millions on white privilege training. A group of psychotic, evil anti-Americans from San Francisco are going around the country teaching poor, innocent teachers and administrators how to deal with achievement and disciplinary issues, instead of teaching them how to control the maniacs and the losers who should be locked up in a juvenile detention hall. They say that it's based on white privilege to the unfair detriment of black students. And it cost them a lot of money to learn that. St. Paul's schools spent at least the following amounts on consultation services, $137,000 to these sick vermin from San Francisco in 2010, $366,000 to the sick anti-American vermin in 2011, $598,000 given to this diversity training in 2012, $489,000 in 2013. This district is spending all of this money in order to teach teachers how to take children who are working hard and tell them that they have white privilege, and how to let loser animals, out of control animals, running in the halls, beating people up, punching teachers, and saying that it's a result of white privilege that they're doing this. They're teaching them, in other words, that they're victims. It claims that the American educational system is built around white culture, tradition, and special norms. That is white privilege to the unfair detriment of black students. If this had gone on in the 1940s, not only would we have lost World War II, can you imagine what this country would have been? Can you imagine all the inventions invented by the privileged white males? For example, those who gave us so many inventions. They should have been ashamed of their brains. They should be ashamed of their inventiveness. How did we get to this point? The question becomes, how did we get here? And moreover, the bigger question is, how do we get away from these sickos? How do we regurgitate the vomit of the radical Marxist left that has now poisoned every aspect of our society? Well, number one, it goes back to the biggest evildoer in the history of the American presidency, Barack Obama. I bring it all back to him. He ran a campaign against white police for years. Him and Holder and Al Sharpton, one of the most evil men in the history of the country, ran a war against police. Al Sharpton did this in New York City for 20 years with a verminous lawyer, a rat lawyer who made tens of millions of dollars suing the NYPD on false claims of racism. And then he took it national. And then they put Obama in the White House. Now, can you believe you're living in a country where a street rat like Al Sharpton actually selected the new Attorney General, Loretta Lynch? Do you know what she is? Do you know what she's done in New York? Well, let's put her aside. Let's look at the evildoer himself. The country was in bad shape before this evildoer came along, culturally. He has now poisoned the culture to the extent that the body is paralyzed. And now he's going through a phase of revisionist history about himself that would be laughable were it not pathetic and dangerous. Along the lines of every other mad, insane, psychotic dictator that's ever existed, this creature in the White House told an audience that one of his core principles is to never divide people. Now, why would the most divisive president in American history be spending his every day now trying to revise people's knowledge of what he is? They're looking right at him. They know what evil is. They can see it. It comes out of his mouth every time he opens it, turning people against each other, black against white, gay against straight. Wherever you turn, that's the man's entire lifestyle, built upon what he learned as a radical street agitator from the Alinsky method. You can look at the story yourself on the Gateway Pundit, which I linked up on michaelsavage.com, or I want you to listen now to the president, and I want you to listen to him lying as he catches himself reading his own lie. You can hear he's stunned by what someone wrote for him. Listen in 4.
One of my core principles is that I will never engage in a politics in which I'm trying to divide people or make them
Did you hear?
less than me.
Did you hear him pause on that? He knows it's such a lie. He knows it's the opposite of who he is. He knows that his entire MO is divisiveness. So he got one of his 6 sorority girls, one of the drug addicts who work for him, to write this filth. And this guy stumbles on his own lie because he can't believe what they wrote for him. One of these sick girls who work for him. Listen carefully and tell me if you didn't hear what I just heard. I'm an expert. There's nobody better than me. Nobody has better ears than me in the history of the media, ever. I just heard this man stumble on his own lie. He could not believe that they gave this to him to read. Listen to this.
One of my core principles is that I will never engage in a politics in which I'm trying to divide people or make them less than me because they look different or have a different religion. That's a core principle. That's not something I would violate.
Now, why would he have to say a thing like this when he knows it's a lie? The girls who work for him know he's in trouble. The girls who work for him know that he's the most divisive president in history, and everybody knows the king has no clothes. So let me pause right there, and I'm going to tell you where I'm going with today's show. How do you cope with the liberal meltdown of all of our values? I know some extremely successful people who began with nothing. They began with nothing, zero inheritance, no white privilege, and through brains and guts, they made themselves into extremely wealthy, successful individuals. And these few people that I know who have built their lives like this are now sick to their stomachs as they see this divisive weasel in the White House and what he is doing to America, burning down the city of Baltimore. Half the city was burnt to the ground because of the vile filth that came out of his mouth against white police. The police will not work in Baltimore right now. And the very same ghetto dwellers who hated the police are now saying the police are not there for them. That's what's going on in America. Wherever you turn, you see a country that's having a heart attack because of this man. Now he has the nerve to say one of my core principles is to never divide people. So let me go back to that issue. How do you cope with it? I see people who say to me, he's infecting the country in every way he can with an incurable disease. Why are they bringing Syrian refugees to all white communities in Idaho, for example? Why would they do this? It's like bringing a cancer to a Christian community. Did you hear what I said? Send it to Media Matters. Send it to George Soros personally. I'll say it again. Why would the evil devils in the State Department take Syrian refugees, not Christian refugees, mind you, but Muslim Syrian refugees who have not been vetted, some of them could be Al-Qaeda or Al-Nusra, and bring them to an all-white Christian cohesive community in North Dakota or wherever they're bringing them, other than to fracture that community? Why would they inject the equivalent of a virus into such a community? Because they will not stop until the country is totally broken in every corner of the land. Now you say, well, wait a minute. I know you're right, Michael, but what can I do about it? I feel paralyzed. You know that the Republicans were elected to stop this. You know that that liar, that gullet liar, that liar gullet from Kentucky, that liar, worse than a lame horse, McConnell, and that stew-bum drunk, Boehner. You know that they were given the power to stop this maniac. And what did they do? What did these men do? They're more evil than the Democrats. The Republican Party today is more evil than the Democrat Party for one simple reason. The Democrat Socialist Islamist bloc in the Democrat Party is clear in their agenda. The Republican Party was supposed to stop this agenda. That's why we went to the polls in November. Instead of stopping the evildoers, they have enabled the evildoers. So people say to me, Michael, I can't go on. I can't look at this every day. I get sick. And they ask me what I do. I said, I've been doing it for 21 years. I haven't died yet. So they asked me, how can we live with this? What do we do when we see a country that is dying? Wherever you look, we know the news media what it is. There is no news media. They're just paid stooges. We know guys like Bill Maher, Stephen Colbert, Jon Stewart have always been government jesters. They either give money directly for the favoritism that they get back, in my estimation, in order to be rewarded by being patted on the head by Obama. Every once in a while they get to go there and have their head patted by Obama, these little boys. And they pretend that they're big, wild, crazy guys as they sip vodka in the Chateau Marmont. But these government jesters are actually the pure evil of our society as well. They're the jesters of the type that were used in the concentration camp to bring people into the ovens thinking that they were being entertained. How do you cope with all of this? You don't know where to turn for relief, do you? And I have some answers for you of how to cope with the liberal meltdown of all of our values. I'll be right back. Be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth with gold and silver. Call 800-BUYCOIN.
Does your
So what we're going through in America is something unique to America. It's not unique to the world. Other countries have died. It's just that we're dying, and many of us feel it, where everything is upside down and backwards. White privilege, of course, is an invention of the Marxist left to take some of the most creative, productive people in the society and make them ashamed of their productivity. And to take people who are, let us say, not quite as productive and make them feel that they're victims. So if they want to punch a teacher in the face, run through a hall, knock someone off a chair, that's fine. It's just their cultural prerogative. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. So I went back in time to 2002 to my first published commercial book called The Savage Nation. And I found something that's worth looking at, because I was being somewhat, I wouldn't say sarcastic, I was saying being a little sarcastic. And I said, imagine a future if Al Gore wins the presidency. And I wrote this in 2002. And I said, this is what we might anticipate with Al Gore or another liberal in the White House. 1, homosexuals in the military and homosexual marriage. Really, Michael? No kidding. 2, affirmative action, which they will call the Fairness for Dummies Act. 3, reparations for non-slaves by non-slaveholders. 4, hate crime laws aimed at straight white males. 5, racial profile